Okay, so hopefully you guys are very near to finish on your user stuff. It seems like it went a little quickly on you. Worked out. The only outside, because at least everything's expecting to be your uh, but it doesn't look like that's come up kind of quickly on you. But, well, tomorrow, so we can talk about it tomorrow and the next day. Exactly the way you want it. Uh, okay, so we talked about how do you know class they are, what they want, and in this class, what kind of information from that, what kind of information persona. Today, we're going to move forward from that information persona to an information model, a logical model, and a physical model. So we did our use last week, and now we're on the info model. This is this week. We've already done a lot of stuff on. We took somebody else's, tried to take it apart, and now we're going to go the other direction. We're going to try all upon to do all the time for a particular kind of person. We're really focused on understanding this funnel design, at templating the same part of the class, but this time you're going to be creating templates from scratch. So just as a little heads up, you're going to need, and if you want to do it well, some like else hear a beeping noise? Huh? Noise? Yeah, sorry. Projector or something? Well, if it annoys you, maybe try to move forward. You guys in the front hear it? Yeah. Okay. So it's probably right back where you are. Okay. So heads up on needing to design some web pages, and if there's no CSS skills in your team, let me know and we'll compensate for that. All right. So here's where we ended. We have a person, Michelle, and her information need is what's the coolest car for me. She's newly into some money and she wants to buy a car, and we're going to get her to the right car for her. Studying her, what kind of things you create for her. Now we're going to take that and we're going to play it forward to figure out not just in general in terms of her information types, but also in terms of her access structure. Okay, so cutting right to the that it implies idea that in order to get her information, you have to know stuff about cool cars, and that furthermore, these are the aspects, the major attributes, the major element of a cool car, and here's the amount of information to get her to the car. Okay, I made on the car and the dealer. One big type missing from here. So that's immediately apparent. I have a price in has to use it to the car. That's all going to come across is that this thing can blow up. Not so big that you just get keep it down to info types and you'll that's fine. But two is about the right number that you'll be able to get through it all the way to the end because there's a lot more work coming. So don't do a huge model only to later on realize that there's no way you can play that whole model out. So keep it down. And the way that I right off the bat decided to keep it down was there's not going to be anything about people in here because that's just going to take me in a whole other direction. And I can get all the work I need done. And this is enough. This is enough. This amount of stuff is already down to two. So let me explain how I came up with this model. Let me explain what kind of cars are there. The idea of there are various kinds of cars, but from our perspective, what matters about the cars is not like make and model. There's Fords and there's, but more like what kind of cars are there in terms of what they have. What kind of cars have off-road capability? Off-road. What kind of cars are for a person like me? I'm sort of girly, but I have, some tomboy in me. I'm just making stuff, right? So I have these personality traits. What kind of cars? The type of person I am. How do you buy a car? She might want some step-by-step instructions because she's never really bought a car before. She might want first you do this, then you do this. I'm hoping probably where most of your minds are going is towards functionality. Oh, I'm going to create a little kind of car wizard for her. Or I'm going to create a checklist for her. I'm going to make a to-do list for her, right? These are all the things that we can do on our site, not necessarily car and the dealership. Or Michelle will start tracking what your personality traits are, your favorite cars, all that kind of stuff. That's in there, and don't stop yourself from thinking about that because that's the end game that you want. Just make sure as you think about those things that you're realizing which ones you can really accomplish this quarter. Okay, what are my opinions? She's going to want to be able to share information. And again, some of this stuff may go beyond my scope because then I'm going to track her friends in the system. I'm going to have lots of people in the system. I'm not sure. This is definitely the minimum amount that's still system. What can I afford? What's my personality? What's my personality? All of these different things come from an understanding. So I have a short description and a long description, and you'll see that I use this idea of short description and long description a lot. What I'm thinking is that she needs a lot of help. She needs sort of a lot of tender love and care on the site. It's got to really walk her through things because she's maybe a little nervous about buying her car. So I'm always going to have little pop-up short descriptions are unformatted. Also long descriptions or some things that have media in them. We're going to talk about features. Power everything. That might be a feature that we have. All the drill actions. What is it? What is it? What is the box and what are the actions that you can have? Maybe it has a sport pack. That's personality traits of a car. Now here's where we start what nobody else has. I don't think I can't think of a single car site that has personality traits associated with cars. That's where we're coming from. So that our kind of person is all about who am I, what do I want, and how does my car suit what I want. The best car, a car or a car, an off-road car, but I still want to have it to go to the beach. Those are the options that use who owns one. As far as is so what are the people in the world? So like celebrities or something like that who own cars that are kind of like the one I have. Lots of stories, and of course, cars. Dealer is a lot easier to understand. Dealer is stuff. Thing down here called the rating, and why we need this rating and what. Dealer, we have short and long descriptions. Okay, so this is my idea. This is how I think. Person with this tell the big story, not the details about all the little features. Okay, one last thing to see about this is all of these are controlled from the first part of the class. They're all lists of stuff that I've come up with that or that we will have in our system that are standard. So standard set of personality traits, standard sort of extras, standard set of best uses. And now I have two rich text models. We talked about that before as well. I have a standard one and a more enhanced one. And so I've invented these because they go along with my short description. It's going to really only have paragraphs with a few small formatting attributes. My long descriptions are going to have a lot more in them. But notice, I decided to keep my long descriptions down pretty much too. Not all different, not any HTML can go in there. Only bullet lists and numbered lists, some media, some links, and some paragraphs. So this is the condensation of a lot of work that I did to try and go from my persona down to what kind of information would suit that persona. This is a big leap. This is maybe the biggest leap in the whole project. Is well, I know something that I want to kind of hash over a little bit with your different people who come up with suggestions, and as you're deciding how to go from this that you to this that the key questions to always ask is how does this we have over here help with what we know about our youth? Lots of productive discussion. However, you'll also see that it's not that easy just to kind of blast it out and be done with it. You're going to continually revise this, and you're going to continually come back to it as time goes on. Okay, that's the model. I'm going to probably not have time today, good morning, to talk about the physical model. So I'll get as far as I can into the physical model of this today, but most likely I'll record that with good audio, and I'll post it later today so that you guys can see how I go then from a logical model to a physical model. How many tables would you say this is going to take in a database? Just guess. 2? We're looking at 2 tables here, Michael? Probably not, right? Right? So it's not 2 tables. In fact, you'll be lucky if you get away with a dozen tables or 15 tables to model something like this. And that, once again, and I'll end on the logical design of the information model this way, is that this you can show to anybody. You have a whole team full of lots of people, and very few of them, if any, are going to understand the database structure. But they'll all understand this. And you realize that when you take this and turn it into something real, it's going to blow up into this giant schema, just like it did on you guys last week when you did your own reverse engineering exercise, and just as you saw in Snopes. Things look easy when you look at them this way, but in reality, when you actually play them out, they become this huge database structure. So really important to be able to focus in at this level, at the logical level of the information, so that you can discuss it, and so that there's not a big commitment. Notice to change this around, I have to delete a line or add a line. But once this thing's in the database, you won't know. But to change the database, add new relationships, all the bridging tables, but here, as long as possible, and then when you have on this level, then one person a lot easier to do it that way. Okay, so on to your what I expect from you guys. At least 2 intro types, at least 1 rich text attribute in each of those 2 types, with your model of what goes in that rich text attribute based on what you think should be allowed in there. vocabularies in your model. And when you get to the model, if it has less than 12 tables, it's probably benchmark. Um, less than a dozen tables, and you probably haven't really gotten something complex enough. Very likely, it's going to be like it just works. You go with it, the more tables you end up creating. All right, so I want to make between an info type and an entity. These are info types. Cool call. Info type is a logical concept. It's a kind of that matters to us. We're going to tell us because we're doing cars. All the Michelles in the world are going to be, are actually our real clients. Are Michelles in the world paying for the system? That designers are paying for the system? Some big fat cat. Where's the fat cat in this information? Right? Most likely, we're doing this for dealers. Dealers want the Michelles in the world, and they realize that other people aren't getting those Michelles because Michelle's very well underserved. But they're paying us to bring Michelles to the dealers. That's the aspect of it. In this class, nothing with that part, with the idea that you're there to serve dealers aren't getting customers out of this, then why are you doing it? That's always there. On the Michelles. And because they're giving them the cool car information. So a dealer is what's an entity? An entity is what you guys are all used to from before this class. An entity, from our standpoint, is a physical idea. An entity is a story table, right? Or a story entity that's linked to other entities, one dimension or many relationships. That's an entity. An entity is a physical idea. The information type is a logical idea. It's the kind of information we want to deliver. And I really hope that you take that idea to heart because it's your way of interacting with the rest of the world. Anybody on your team can interact at a logical level. Only the techies can interact at a physical level. And if your only language is a physical language, you're only going to ever be able to interact with techies. And all the rest of the people on the team are going to either, you're going to be irrelevant to them, or you're just going to seem like the geek in the corner who doesn't know how to talk English. Right? So it's that important to understand how to climb out of a physical world to a logical world. Anybody can speak a logical language. Okay, I've talked to you about this a couple of times. I'm just going to mention it again now. Keep the scope under control. You really blow up. So and this is still relatively early in the project. You got a lot more work to do with making page flows and funnels and then finally templates. And so if your model blows up at this size, you're going to have too big of a project to complete by the end of the quarter. So stay sort of okay, even though you don't know necessarily yet all the rest of the stuff you're going to have to do. Okay, here's the specific deliverable. I want a model. I just went directly there and I walked you through it verbally. I want you to walk me through part of the information of this part of the persona. I want to talk about these next week. Why are these the two most important entities? Sorry, the two most important information types to talk about when we're talking about delivering information to that person. It's really important to show as you go from the model. Lays out the logical level. You did it once on your own, and this will be the third time. So you kind of have the idea of what those diagrams look like and what kind of things have arrows pointing to them, and what flags you need on optional attributes. They all have. Okay, a logical design of the rich text attributes. I struggle if you do a physical design. I sort of danced around that design. I showed you a couple of times a model of what goes inside those rich text fields and how can we make those. I decided that I'm not going to drag you in that direction because it's too much extra stuff and it's going to take you off task. But I want the logical realize that that's not to say what HTML tags are in here. What kind of, when I did mine, I had links and media. That's not A's and INGs. I need to take care of links. The fact that I might end up having an tag inside of my rich text is not what I want to know right now. I want to know that it's a link and I have to manage external links. Those are the sorts of things I want to do. That doesn't show access structures at this point. We'll talk about access structures in a minute. Justify your choices. Okay, so that's the info types. Remember, we have access structures. Now I want to blast into the idea of access structures. And I know from experience that it takes kind of a little while for these access structures to sink in. And so I'm going to give you, I'm going to go back through it and just review the ideas of each of them, not in detail, but in enough detail to get you kind of back up on the horse. We started with the idea of a hierarchy, and this is a typical hierarchy. This is today's, it might even actually just be starting to go out of fashion. If you notice, and you guys should start noticing, ways of doing information architecture come in and out of style. This is probably still the major style where we have a global nav up here. And we get a big fat thing that drops down and covers the entire page and shows a lot of the hierarchy. So that's the current style, is to show a lot of hierarchy, and show a lot of levels, and be able to right off the bat. So a hierarchy, the main thing about a hierarchy is it's parents and children. It's levels. It's categories under categories. It's a table of contents. And it's very easy to see this as a table of contents of the site. That's the way a hierarchy works. More to the point for us now, and what I want you guys to start thinking about is, so when is a hierarchy called for? When do I need a hierarchy? When am I going to think of a hierarchy for my user to deliver the information types? Take it into two different ideas of information. Tool to deliver access structures. Access structures that somebody can find it. Different minds. So I'll talk about when the information demands this thing and when the user demands it. So hierarchy categories. When it's really clear that this thing has categories. So, example, in the class collection site, we have makes and models. Can you see that it's make, model, year? Cars. The cars are naturally organized actual breakpoints from category to category. I want to show the proper names for the information. That's why I ever have a textbook that doesn't have a table of contents. There tell you how all this stuff fits together. But the point of the textbook is to organize all the information in a framework where you get the idea that, I see one of these, and this is one actually teaching you something. And that information, have to break it down in clear terms. Some pieces of the information from other pieces. I've all done enough object-oriented programming that I can put a statement like this on the board, and it should be understandable to you. That not every piece of information is all on its own. It's its own standalone thing that has no inheritance relationships with other pieces of information. So, a hierarchy calls for the biggest question, and the thing that I think I would, if I was you, I would use as a rule of thumb is, wants to know what's in it. I don't really know. I'm not familiar. I'm kind of thinking about this stuff, and I want to browse my. You guys familiar with that term, browse versus search? Right? That's what you're browse. means I'm looking around. I'm not trying to get directly to the thing I want. I'm kind of looking around. I'm scouting it out. When the user is awesome at telling you what's in it. When you pick up a book and you want to know that book, and the first thing you do is look up it. That's how hierarchy works. That's the thing to give an overview of lots and lots of information. I can take a book that's 1,000 pages and in 2 pages tell you everything that's in it. It's really effective at giving you lots and lots of information, and it's effective at teaching you about the information. When you feel like you know a subject matter, it's because you know all the different categories of the subject matter. And you know under those categories how those categories break down. It's a really good learning tool. Information like this, if you like this, you better opposed to what most hierarchies, which is, oh, we got a site. The site has to have a site map, right? It's like that. They just think of it that way. But that's not really the case. The site doesn't have to have a site map if somebody wants to navigate around the site as a whole unit. If the site is completely elemental, each page is a whole world, then there's no need for a site map. So what I want you to start thinking about is not, well, what does every site have, but why does a site need something, and when's the right situation to use that something? And this is going for a hierarchy. Okay, next one, index. Pictures of indexes, but I want to focus on this one. At the same time, a kind of a complex view of an index, but also shows all the parts of the index. So I have one. It is all the rage, by the way, on websites right now. This is from Amazon, by the way. I do a search for bowling balls, and this is the thing I come to. What's this thing called? Starts with an S. Not the easy eyes to that. Graduation, you're walking across and have a diploma in this hand. You got to go back. Sometimes called filter. Faceted classification. The facets, all facets of internal. Filtering is a way that kind of people out there in the world talk about it. We talk about that. I would Google faceted classification a little bit about it because it's kind of, it's also all the rage right now. Uh, Full text and a much more rich experience. We could talk about it for a long time. My point right now is the index or numerically sorted list of terms that allows you to get at stuff. And when do you need it? It tells you need it. It tells you need it. It tells you need it. It has common attributes. Like I have a bunch of articles here, and they all have authors. And it's clear to me that each article has an author, and that sometimes put their finger down the authors and find the author. Almost 180 degrees from the idea of a hierarchy. The hierarchy is bringing all the information together because it all fits into one big picture. Because it has a idea to it. It's not one big picture. That you might want to find your way around. Its own little world, and the index allows you to take them all and put them together, even if they don't share anything a title. Okay, some attributes clearly divide the information, like the author. If I took all of these things and I tried to organize them, I really can't organize them into categories and subcategories, but I could organize them by author, and I could put the ones with the name that starts with A first and the name that starts with be last. That would be a good way to organize these items. Okay, when does the user want it? A different question, not what's in here, but is it in here? With a particular idea. The user isn't trying to scouting around. The user is trying to go right to the right one. That's the idea. The idea of Google when you type in a box is that you kind of know what you're looking for, and it's going to give you some choices of is it this, is it this, is it this one. So if you want quick random access to the middle of the information, a hierarchy is like you read your way down through it and you scan from up to below. But an index is I'm going to go right into the middle of the information, and if that's the idea that your user has, then an index is the right way to go. Okay. And there may be particular attributes, like they know the name of the author, or I'm on Amazon and I know the name of the item is a bowling ball, and so I'm going to have something organized alphabetically by type of item. Information tells you need it, and the user tells you need it. And just as I wouldn't want you to always include a hierarchy just because, I don't want you to always include an index just because either. And I want you to be able to successfully defeat this argument, which you will hear over and over again, which is, well, we have the search box, right? What more do we need? We have the search box, so let's just blow off the rest of the stuff. What's the rebuttal to that argument? Yeah. That's it. That show. And that's the they come back and say to you, well, what we're searching for, because we persona, and we know that that's always know what they want. If they're browsing, I need to give them something that allows them to browse, and an index doesn't do that. Okay, associations. I gave you this picture. These are the classic associations. Inline links at a high level. They organize all the things, but notice what we're getting from the entire body. Association. If you're here, I want to go here. Options to go elsewhere from where you are here to where you might want to be. Once again, the information wants it sometimes, and the user wants it sometimes. When does when there a natural path from one item? It's clear that I'm reading about causation, and I'm reading about causation in philosophy, but maybe I want to read about causation in physics, and so I can see the link, I can see the association, and I'm going to present it to you because you might want that. You might want that as well. Information is organized like a web. Classic information scheme like the web. That's used all the time, probably 5 or 6 screens right. What's your web of association between you and other people? What do we call that? Starts with an S. Ends with a Facebook. Right? Facebook sitting on. You're all about that. You're all about organizing yourself. That's a web, and we have links called friendship. Kind of point because in common, calling for the user might be in the wrong place, but kind of close. When the user are A, but you know that you give them the way to get when the user might be following a scent, and I gave you this idea before. It's a really good idea. Another $1,000 idea to try that in some meeting is to say, when users look for stuff, they follow their noses. And sometimes you just have the smell. You think, I'm in the right vicinity. I'm seeing cars that I like better than the ones I was seeing before. I'm moving towards my destination, but I don't know exactly where my destination is. That's when associations, that's when the user's attitude is, it's useful in the user's attitude to use association. Because they're kind of like brailing it. They're kind of feeling it out. And if you give them just the right association, you can move them in the right direction. Okay, so these are all the things we're going to use in just a minute when I show you my access structure model. Finally, sequences. I showed you this picture from Netflix. This is a carousel, and it's a sequence. The key thing about the sequence is that it's in the order that I, the designer, would like you to consume these items. I know for some reason, or I suspect for some reason, that before you look at this, I present them in a sequence. I present them sort of in story form, where one follows the next, follows the next, follows the next, because I think that's what's necessary. Why? Because the information has a natural order. There's some story to this information. There's something where it really makes sense to have A, B, C, D, and E. It has prerequisites and postrequisites. You got to kind of know this before you go on to that. Actually, that Netflix makes is tonight. That one, if you don't like that one. So when the user has a tool to help do something or learn step by step, first do this, then do that is really, really helpful. And so that's usually how we teach things, as sequences. First thing first, if you go on something you don't know about, you know about all the things you needed to know about first. Actually, this one's in the wrong place. Want to show them? This is a kind of a fudge because this really is much more about the organization than the user. The organization wants them to see that. So why is that first movie in the first position on the Netflix carousel? Two possibilities. Because Netflix thinks you want to see it most, or Netflix thinks they want you to see it first. Get the idea? Two different things going on here. I want to see it first. The owner wants for whatever movie they're getting the most money from, or whatever. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to do with you today, got about enough time to do this, is talk about how did I figure this out? How did I go from all of that basic information about when you use these different methods to try and figure out what I'm going to do for Michelle and how I'm going to organize her information. So far, we know what the information is, but we don't know how it's together. We don't know how it's organized. So I came up with this whole constellation of access structures based on what I think I know about information need and information behavior. Because they were out of scope, because there was too much. Notice I already got a bunch of stuff going on. I have to have lots of new access structures as well. So fine with me is to come up with more, and you can't meet every part of the info persona. Every part of the info persona that you do choose to, I want you to tell me how I get that. What kinds of cars are there? Notice the idea there. The user doesn't really know what's going on. The user wants you to help them learn. The user doesn't even know what kinds of cars there are. They're starting at the top. Can you see how that sort of says to us, oh, this is a hierarchy kind of place. This is going into the bookstore and says cars. It's got a big book that says cars, and they're going to turn to the table of contents because they don't really know what's going on with cars. They are in a learning mode. So a hierarchy is a really good thing to do that. Then you might get to, if this is a book, using the book metaphor, that they end up in a car page. But it isn't exactly the right car page, but it's close. And the idea of smell there, the idea that they managed to get someplace that's in the vicinity, and now instead of telling them, we'll go back to the table of contents, turn to the front of the book again and start over again, that's kind of the problem with the hierarchy, is if you get to the wrong branch, all you have the hierarchy, you're kind of stuck. Because you don't know the branch. Where is the right branch? I could have made little turns all over the place. But if I augment the hierarchy with, well, you kind of got close, and now that I know you're in this other cars you might want to look at that share certain attributes with this car, then I've augmented that by hierarchy. A car that's coolest. So I'm using techniques, and I'm creative. Finding the techniques to try and get she comes in not knowing. She comes in something that's close, and then I'm going to navigate her closer by giving her the proper choice of clearly I present step one, a step two, a step three, a step four, and that's the sequence. What car suits my personality? I kind of know my personality, or at least that piece of information. Like I'm adventurous. So I'm going to choose wild and adventurous from my list of possible personality traits, and then I'm going to see what cars are wild and I'm starting from my personality. I want to go from something. Is it the car the cars that are 20,000? Give me the right? So what I can afford. So hierarchy, cars by type, index. I have all of these different indexes because I think that the user is going to come to my site knowing something about features, possibly. Although if I had to ditch one, I'd ditch this because this is like Michelle of all of these. Michelle isn't about features. Michelle is about, help me figure out what car I want. And so she's not going to come in and say, I want something that's a 4x4. Definitely want a 4x4. So I'm going to start from 4x4. She might get to 4x4, but she's going to get to it through Wild and Adventurous. Oh, Wild and Adventurous? I'm going to show you a bunch of 4x4 cars. And then I might show you other 4x4 cars that are, have other things that you share, like uses. I'm wild and adventurous, and I do a lot of skiing in the winter. That might take me to 4x4. Okay, so here are all the different indexes we have, and each one of them is an idea that the user comes with a piece of information. We're going to present an alphabetical list of all of those pieces of information, and you click on one, and it's going to get you to the correct card. For info behavior, that's a sequence. That implies a sequence. Remember, the sequence is I want to learn, I want to kind of know, and so I can do something like this in my sequence. I can say, here's a bunch of cars, and I'm just going to show you pictures of the cars. Click on the one that you like the best from these pictures. And then that's telling me something because I know what all those cars are organized by, and then that's going to take me to the next screen. And I'm going to drill her sequentially through her car choices in a kind of wizard form, but I'm going to do it through convertible. I might put an SUV on there, and she clicks on one of them, and then based on that, I show her another. I'm going to take her to a sequence. I also want to have this. Notice this. I know that she might get to the wrong place. And so both of these, the problem might be that they don't really exactly closer. I can allow them to filed an advanced card, it comes directly to my page. We'll talk about that later. That's for next time. Lots of pictures and videos. I want to just allow her to click, 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 click around. When the web was invented, it was called the World Wide Web. Because why? What did they think the major organizing principle of the World Wide Web was going to be? Somebody just said that. Specifications, right? Is that the way the web is organized? What would you call it? The World Wide Web or the World Wide Web? Really? When you find information on the web, how are you finding it today? You go from that's the way the whole your Okay, so, oh, I know what it was. The name of the company that lost because they thought the web was best organized as a hierarchy. Yeah. Yahoo! Bingo! Yahoo said the web is we need a table of contents to the web, and that's what Yahoo thought they were. They thought they were a table of contents. Okay, so I want you to use these slides as you move forward, so that's a bump for you as well. And it's Dustin, right? Yeah, Dustin. Look these over and make sure that you understand these. The Goat Creek, not quite at the end of the I would actually suggest because you're kind of it may seem really abstract to you, but it's not going to be abstract at all. By the time we get to the end of the class, this is going to be particular pages on a website that have this area that's ruled by this template, this machine, this area ruled by this template. So if you make some sketches, that might help you. But don't lock yourself in. The way that I'm doing this, and I'll just show you real quickly. Oh, and by the way, lots of questions you can use in the slide deck to help you figure out which thing you need. Let me just give you an overview. So this is how my structure works. This is how my access structures work. I want you to get the idea that this is very abstract. This isn't talking about a page on the web. And you guys are very used to looking at pages on the web. So what I want you to do is get less used to looking at pages on the web and more used to looking at users and what they need in order to get to the information they want, and then figure out how they go on the web. But if you need to make some sketches of pages, it might not be a bad idea just to get on track. Okay, so I will record the description of the physical design of the model that I came up with, and I'll run through the whole physical design, and I'll post that on the website for you guys. And it's probably worth it for you to look at it, to look that over. All right, thanks, and I'll see you tomorrow or Thursday.